So just to give you a very quick idea of who ImageScan is, we're a small AIM-listed company based in Leicestershire. We're about 18 people, and we make X-ray imaging systems. X-ray imaging systems for two markets: for the security marketplace, where we make portable X-ray systems, and for the industrial marketplace, where we make systems for inspecting catalytic converters. And those are our two principal activities. I'll talk about each of those in a bit greater detail as we go along. We're very much an export-led business. In a typical year, we might export 80 or 85% of our sales, and we have a renewed and expanding product range, and that's what's driving the recent improvement in our performance. And it says there we're just 18 people in the company at the moment, based in just outside Loughborough. Just to give you an idea of how the business got to where it is today, this company just passed its 20th anniversary. It launched on AIM in 2002. Back in 2002, which is very soon after 2001, I shouldn't have had to explain that really, but 9/11 and the crisis of 9/11 caused a big flourish of security technologies and investments in security technologies, and ImageScan was caught up in that. So it was a spin out from Nottingham Trent University with X-ray systems that produced a three-dimensional image, the same type of three-dimensional image that you see if you go to the cinema. And it was hoped with its 70p launch price that this was going to be appear in all the airports and so on as one of those responses to 9/11. That didn't happen. The technology didn't get taken up to quite that extent. And since then, the company's tried its hands at various applications of X-ray imaging systems. And back in 2006, started producing portable X-ray systems. And you can see there the share price somewhat got stuck in the doldrums for an extended period. I was approached in back end of 2013, and I have a background in the security industry. I've been in Smiths Group PLC since the year 2000, where I was involved in starting the detection division inside Smiths Aerospace and creating a separate division of that. I ran the US business for a couple of years. I ran the research and development for 2 or 3 years. So I was really, had quite an extensive background in the security industry. I was involved in the business and got asked to take a look at it, and became chairman in 2014. Since then, we raised some money. We used that money to invest in the product range and to take those products to market, and to change really the business model for the company from one of doing one-off customer-funded development projects that produced very often just a single system, to one that was focused on a smaller number of products that could be produced repeatably in the two markets that I've outlined. And it took us a year or two to work our way through that, change the company, change some of the staff, we changed the board, and to develop that new product range. And then starting in 2015, those products started to come into the market. In 2016, we started picking up large orders for those products, and that process has continued. And that's led to the growth in the share price from little under 2p at its low point to currently around 8p at the moment. Just briefly, in terms of that management team, the only person from the original management team pre-2014 who's still involved in the business is in fact Vince. And Vince is part of the reason I will say this. I don't want him to blush. I'm going to ask him to stand up and actually talk in a minute why I joined the business. Well, not so much Vince, if I'm honest, but the excellent route to market that this company had. I knew from my time in Smiths Detection that developing products in this space, you can do, lots of people managing to do that, but for a small company to get those markets into the government systems worldwide, is a very difficult and expensive thing to set up. An image scan had a great route to market. My judgment was that it needed a product range to feed into that route to market. And I felt that my background in Smiths gave me a good chance of delivering that, and I fairly quickly had ideas what they should do. We also changed the rest of the board then. Tim joins us. Dr. Richard Lever joined us, who has a background in investing in security technologies and supporting security technology businesses. He joined us in 2014 as well. And the other member of the management team, who unfortunately can't be here today, is Sarah Atwell-King, who's our very experienced financial controller and also company secretary. So that's the management team. So progress since 2014, I talked about as launching products and getting those products into the market, and that started to be reflected in our financial performance. And you can see there back in 2014, we were turning 2.2 million in sales in a full year and making a loss on that 2.2 million. We recently provided an updated guidance for our year end, which is due at the end of this month, of a £4.5 million a year and a profit of £250,000, building on the profit of about less than half that amount that we made last year. So the business has become profitable and has got the basis from which to drive that growth forward in the future. The other thing we announced alongside the or forecast for the year end, alongside that sales and profit result, was a closing order book of over £2 million. So as well as delivering a good year this year, we've got in our order book a really solid foundation for next year. And for a company that's is very much a manufacturing business, that gives us confidence to look into the next financial year and hope to continue the progress that you see here. And that growth is founded on targeted investment in new products, on taking those products to market, and in improving our manufacturing and supply chain operations. And that's been a real big thing, to take this from a prototype company, which gets all the engineers down in the lab and they sort of fiddle away at something until it works, to a slick system that's capable of delivering 100 systems in a month when we need to. And that's a very different type of company, but that's the type of company that we've become. Just this image on the right here, if the name portable X-ray system doesn't conjure up an image in your mind, you can see here somebody's seen a bag by the side of the road. They've put an X-ray, our portable X-ray generator on one side of the bag, a detector panel on the other side of the bag, and those two items are connected wirelessly with a laptop, so the bomb technician can retire 50 or 100 yards away from this, somewhere safe, and within a few seconds he's got an accurate X-ray image of what's inside that bag on his laptop. So that's the fundamentals of how this system works. So as I say, good progress since 2014, and looking forward to a good growth in this financial year, to the point where we've been confident enough to report that to the market. I thought I'd put this up because this is our last sort of formally published set of results, which is the first 6 months, our interims really, first 6 months of our financial year 2017. Our year ends the end of September, so these are results until the end of March. And they just break down a little bit more detail. You can see the sort of gross margin that the business makes at around 40%. Our costs have grown slightly through that growth at about £100,000 a year, but we're keeping our costs, our overhead costs, under pretty tight control as we expand the business, and that's what's allowing that growth to fall through to the bottom line in the way that it has. And down here you can see our factory with a whole raft of packaged up portable X-ray systems and all the support equipment waiting to get sent off to customers. So that's our first 6 months of this year, and we're reporting on the full year to the end of September in outline in a pre-closed trading statement that we'd expect to issue at the end of October. That's our normal pattern, and then our formal report and accounts will come out in December. That's how we usually report. Just to look in a little bit more detail at the marketplace where we play. So very specifically, portable X-ray systems. Our customers, by and large, are bomb technicians and bomb squads. So the guys that turn up with the suit and the robots and all that equipment when something's discovered that's suspicious, or where a bomb's gone off and you want to inspect anything else to see if there's any more trouble. These bomb technicians are our end users. They're not always our direct customers. Very often we work through intermediaries, which is how we manage to sell into places like Bangladesh and Thailand and countries all around the world, through our intermediaries to these bomb technicians. They aren't the only users. The prison service and in some countries, customs officials use our equipment for finding drugs. But at its core, this is something for the bomb technicians. It's quite a small market. The one bit of sort of quotable data we've managed to find for this market estimates it at around £50 million a year. In actual fact, looking at the data in that report, our feeling is it's larger than that. It's left out some sectors of the market, but we have to be able to justify any numbers that we put in here, and this is the one report that we found, which translates into around 900 systems a year. We're selling a couple of hundred of those, and is growing in an overall way, according to this report, at around 4 or 5%. We're seeing pockets of much higher growth than that in particular parts of the world as people respond to the latest threats, as they equip their police and security forces and their military with this kind of equipment. And overall, it's an attractive market to us. The list of competitors there won't mean anything to you. They're all small companies that you won't have heard of, and we like it like that because this market is not populated by people like my former employers, Smiths Group PLC and Rapiscan and the big companies who provide the X-ray systems that your bag goes through at the airport. And indeed, that's exactly what I was doing in my previous company, is providing all those X-ray systems that you see there. So these, by and large, are small companies playing in this marketplace, and there's no reason why a company like us, with carefully targeted investment and good marketing, can't be a leader in this market space. And the progress that we're making at the moment is indeed taking us in that direction. Where our progress has come in this market is getting our new products out there, getting them to the marketplace and really getting them used and supported. And that started at first in 2015 with low volumes. We sell 1 unit here, 5 units here. But what we're doing now is getting more and more involved in the large multi-unit procurements where a government is perhaps re-equipping a whole police force or setting up a new organisation. And it's not uncommon now for us to be selling 10 units, 20 units, 30, 40 units at a time in these major government contracts. Vince will tell you it takes a while to get into these procurements. You've got to help them write specifications, you've got to get involved in competitions, you have to do trials, but that's what we've been doing for the last year or two, and it's those large contracts that's driving our growth at the moment, and that's really been the change. The product innovation has continued, and in fact, over this last year, we've just launched a compact version of our panel as well. Yes, sir.
With these procurements, how easy or difficult is it for you to get export licenses to?
We don't need export licenses for this equipment, so we're not having to go through that process. Yeah. Yes.
How long is the sales cycle?
Typically, could be anything from 2 months up to maybe 18 months, but the modal time period would be 9 to 12 months.
And you mentioned you had a channel to market that was the reason you joined the company. What was that channel?
Sorry?
You mentioned you had a channel to market that was the attraction for you joining the company. You didn't mention what the channel was.
Well, my point is that we have a network of partners, which Vince and his colleagues have built up over the years, that allows us to access, the bomb squad in the Maharashtra police in India or the prison service in Thailand, and for a small company, to be able to sell to as many different places as we're able to sell to is a a significant thing. And I know from past experience to build that up, if you're a startup with a new product, to build that up in government sales is very difficult. And what Vince needed to make that successful was a new product range, and that's what we tried to give him over the last couple of years.
Clearly there's a lot of international events going on with bombs going off everywhere.
Yes.
Market size 50 million by your estimation at the moment.
Yeah.
Has that been increasing over the last few years, or is it just a steady thing?
I think it's been growing. It's very difficult to measuring a market like this is not an exact science because it's government procurements and you don't always know what they're doing. I've put that number in there because it comes from a report, the one report of this specific market that we've been able to find, so that I can source that data. My own view, having looked at that report, is there's some areas of the market that are missing and not covered, and actually it's somewhat larger than that. And certainly we're seeing more procurements for larger quantities of systems. We're seeing more of these 20 off, 30 off procurements, the higher value jobs, and it's winning those that's allowed us to turn our business around.
You get a general feel that governments are looking to put more money and support to the security.
Yes, and just as other parts of security technology, screening, inspection, response, all those markets. I know from my time in Smiths Detection over the last 10 years, since 9/11 really, those markets have received more investment. Those sorts of forces have been better equipped. And as incidents continue to happen and people continue to worry about exported terrorism of one type or another, this is one of the tools that people use for that. And very often it's the first thing that appears on the scene after something's happened, or hopefully is even more often than that used to prevent something happening by reacting to something suspicious. So that's what we're involved in.
You may be coming on to this, but how much is this one-off stuff? How much is the repeat business, and how much is the a sort of service provision, upgrading, and
in this market? Sure. In this market, somewhat in contrast to our industrial market, most of what we do is most of the value is bound up in the equipment sale. We do have schemes for upgrading software and offering additional facilities downstream, but if I'm honest, it's a relatively small amount of the value for us in the security market. I don't know if you want to add to that, Vincent.
No, we sell largely through partners into the government and organisations, and it's been a real challenge to get them to adopt support contracts of any nature. They like to buy the equipment works, they're happy with it. We've tried to get them into calibration contracts and support contracts to, get the sticky revenue that we want. We've been unable to achieve that particularly. But that's industry-wide. That's not just ourselves. Our competitors have the same issue.
So it's to your advantage, I guess, to try and build upgrades of some kind into the system.
Yeah. And we've been able to do that to some extent. We've been introducing new generators and introducing new software is the quickest way of doing that.
Does that therefore mean that they'll keep it for 3 years or something like that?
3 to 5 years, maybe 5 years, and then there'll be a replacement program.
And then they might go somewhere else and get the replacement.
There's that possibility.
Because what reason is there for staying with you?
In terms of familiarity with the equipment and training costs.
Yeah, training staff. I mean, we haven't. We've seen sort of the hardware, but the software that runs on the laptop here and all the operator facilities and functions and how that works are very particular to us, and that's also been part of our product renewal.
And you are upgrading those?
Yeah, constantly. Well, in fact, we've completely upgraded all that over the last 2 or 3 years. So all the software in the PC has been completely as a whole new suite of software, and the generators new, the panels new, all this is new. And in fact, that's what this slide shows in terms of what we're doing with the product range. One of the things I identified when I was just looking at the business at the start, initially on a consultancy basis, is that we had one technology and we were competing in the marketplace with 3. And each of those 3 technologies that we were competing against occupied a different price and performance point. So, without getting all into the detail of the technology itself, we sort of sat here in this mid segment with our what we call line scan technology, but we were losing contracts down here on price, and we were losing contracts on up here on performance. And up here is where people have been using medical X-ray type panels, which are altogether more expensive, provide a different level of performance, and that at the time we couldn't compete with. So our product strategy has been in three parts. Firstly, to renew the product range in this mid segment, produce a low-cost version with a low-cost X-ray generator where we can compete in this bottom segment. And what we're doing now is starting to take business from these guys, particularly in the Indian subcontinent, because we're offering this type of performance at this type of price. And that strategy is really starting to work for us. And then for this top end, we formed a licensing agreement with a company called IBEX, which is a Durham University spin-off, has some very particular X-ray detector technology. We won a grant from Innovate UK to supplement our own internally funded R&D, and we've been developing something called the precision line scan detector, which we aim to have in the market at the back end of this year, which will help us compete at that top end of the segment. Although having said that, the performance that we get with our line scan technology here is getting people that in the past might have spent 50 to 60,000 pounds on one of these systems to realise that for 20 to 30,000 pounds they can have our technology here. And so we're taking business across these this whole market in these different price points, and that's been a big part of what we've been doing as well. Yes.
Do you have any other technological advantage over your competitors, or in providing the technology at a lower price point?
Vince, do you want to talk about competitive?
In terms of where we are, the competitive advantage we have is generally in the software and some of the algorithms in the software to make the image very clear and concise. The images on the screen are shown in colour there. Most of our competitors have to use an adapter onto the generator to achieve what we call materials discrimination. And the orange denotes an organic material, which is 90% of bomb-making material is organic. So we can do that out of the box without additional equipment. And that's one of the hooks we really try to push out in the marketplace.
Is the technology of your competitors very similar in the sense there's a screen and an X-ray?
Yes. Those three elements, yeah.
And what discount is the entry level? What discount do you have on the price of the entry level basically the mid-range of 20,000 to 30,000?
Well, these systems are often 10 to 15,000 pounds, but with our low-cost generator, we can make good margin competing at that price. So we're not. I mean, in order to win some of this market, we did start, discounting in effect before we had this product out. But with this system, we can make the same sort of margin that we make elsewhere, but at that 10 to 15,000 pound price. And that strategy is working. We won a won a nice order from the Indian subcontinent just the other day in that. So just to finish off on security, I mean, it's not just those three systems. People, you can imagine a bomb squad, they're trying to put equipment into all kinds of odd and difficult places, and we've developed a whole range of accessories really to go with this. I mean, we talked earlier about the software, but we've got different communications options. If they need a rugged or a laptop or a tablet, we can give them that. If they need the whole system into the backpack, we have a backpack version of the system. So there's a whole wide range of other things, all of which add value to the sale is the key point. And there might be 20% additional value in the sale on top of the core system tied up in this activity. So that's our security technology, all focused on this portable X-ray market. I'm going to ask Vince just to talk through the next couple of slides around what we do in industrial testing and why that's an interesting business area as well. It's the right button there.
To move forward. Okay, good evening all, thanks very much. So as Bill mentioned earlier, the company was spun out from Nottingham Trent University, and it was full of techies, engineers, great technologists, which was great, but they spent their time responding to every particular problem that they could see, and I know I can build this, I can do this, I can make X-ray solve this guy's problem. But what we decided to do a few years ago is focus on one particular area that we could commercialize and commoditize that technology into a product. And what we've done is we've focused on the catalytic converter market. We have unique technology in terms of how we go about doing this. We inspect the cores that go into catalytic converters. Cores are made of cordierite or ceramic, occasionally metal, but how the catalytic converter works is that there's a precious metal layered onto the catalyst, and that's in a form of a wash coat. And our system was designed to measure the amount of wash coat that was layered onto the substrate. The reason for that primarily was to save cost in the first instance, because the precious metal, platinum, palladium, was about $1,000 a gram at the time. And so what we were doing is accurately inspecting these during the production process, seeing where the wash coat came to, and making sure it came to the right level. So we focused on that. We've developed both the hardware and the software to inspect these both in a lab type scenario and also in the production line. So we have two incarnations here, but there are actually three versions of the actual, what we call the MDXI system. It's a cabinet-based system. Two versions are predominantly based in the laboratory situation, and one version is based robot-loaded into the production line. So what we've got is a well-defined niche, and in terms of competitive scenario, there's not that many people into this market. In terms of the big global players in the X-ray industry, like a GE or a Zeiss, they don't operate in this marketplace. We're using a line scan, so our touch time in terms of our cycle time is about 18 seconds. A lot of the big CT type systems, you're talking minutes to make this inspection. We can give these guys a good guideline of how the wash coat is deposited within 18 seconds. So it's a good market. Not many players in there, and in terms of market penetration, there's four main players in the marketplace, companies like BASF, Umicore, and Johnson Matthey. So there's some of the, and we've penetrated into all of those either with sales or with discussing their process. We also know that emission control is a very topical subject at the moment, both in terms of clean air and reducing emissions in cities. And we're seeing the Paris are talking about banning diesels, and pretty much everywhere is. At the moment, we're doing a lot of work on what they call diesel particulate filters, and the requirement for X-ray within that industry is only rising at the moment, because they need to be more careful about the wash coat that they're putting on there, and also the process in the total. And if we look at the fallout from the VW scandal, we've seen a re-emphasis on people looking at not only controlling the process in terms of the cost of how much precious metal's going in as the manufacturer, but also of the quality of the product that's being produced and sent to the automotive OEM, the end user. So there's been a focus actually back from people like VW. Obviously they've been caught in a scandal, and they've put focus back onto their suppliers now to make sure that the product is at a quality standard. So in terms of market as well, we're seeing it growing at 8% per annum, and that's from a report by Markets and Markets. And it's a significant marketplace. Some of the players in this market have 55 billion turnover, and their segments maybe a few billion in terms of emission control technologies. So we see a very good market currently at the moment. We're well penetrated. We started rolling these systems out in probably 2008, but we've seen a much greater adoption of the technology in the past 3 to 4 years. And we foresee that going forward as well. We've got an install base of 40 systems, and unlike the security sector, we've got a 97% uptake on after-sales support contracts. These machines are installed globally: North America, South America, Central Asia, East Asia, Southeast Asia, Europe, and UK. So we have a very good global coverage.
And is this in their laboratories or on...
In production line as well as laboratories.
It's both?
Yeah, both.
You're not supplying these to the authorities then who are checking?
No, we're not. Because this is a component to the whole exhaust system. So it's the whole exhaust system that's verified by the bodies.
So just sort of recap. We've got a small AIM-listed company that have been bumping along the bottom providing X-ray systems on a sort of one-off, highly engineered basis, but never really managing to make any money at it. What we've started the process of producing out of that is a competitor in 2 key markets, and in each of those markets having standard reproducible products that are well differentiated and are taking the business forward. And we've taken the sales from 1.7 million in 2015 to a forecast of at least 4.5 million at the end of this financial year, the end of September, with a further at least £2 million in the order book to take that next year. So the question really is, how do we then build on that? We build on that, obviously, firstly, through doing more of the same. We've got further new products coming out. They're going to help drive that sales. We're in more competitions, so we're going to be doing more of both of those things that we've been talking about. To take that, the business to the next level, we're going to be looking to do that on the back of the success we've had so far in 2 key ways. Through organic growth, through adding to that product range, both in terms of the sectors we're in now, and we're looking at possibly investing in an additional product range during the course of the coming year through our own internal investment. But adding value to those systems, we're looking, as it said here, at adding other sensors so that we can become an integrator of technology for our bomb technician customer. We also see opportunities to make acquisitions in this kind of space, both in the security space and in the industrial space. I should say that with my own background in Smiths, one of the things I did in Smiths Detection was built up a portfolio of security technologies. So while I was in Smiths Detection, as well as acquiring the big X-ray companies that you see at the airport, we did about 10 or 11 deals, some acquisitions, some licensing deals with different technologies. We had a radiation detection technology, we had chemical analyzers, we had explosive detectors and drug detectors. And that's how Smiths Detection became what it is today, which is a £500 million pounds a year industry leader in this space through doing that. So I know how to do that. Tim, non-exec here, has tremendous experience at acquiring companies and integrating them and putting deals together. So we do have the experience to do this, and I feel that the business is a stable enough platform to consider adding new technologies onto it in that way. So organic growth we're going to drive from the platform that we've already got, and we're looking for the right acquisition targets to grow a portfolio of X-ray of security technology businesses over the next few years. And that really is the story. As I say, we've made a lot of progress in our last set of report and accounts. That progress has really continued into 2017. We delivered a good first half, and we've confidence enough about our full year to make the forecast to the market that I described. The business operates in attractive markets. Security technology is an attractive market at the moment, unfortunately for all the wrong reasons, but nonetheless it is an attractive market. Emission controls in automotive is also an attractive market, and we have a very particular and well-defended niche in that space. Our product pipeline, I think, gives us a really sound basis for growing the business over the next couple of years and holding on to and further developing the competitiveness that we've already delivered with the products that we've brought to market over the last year or two. And we have the right team in place as well, I think, to identify and execute acquisitions in this same space, and we're looking to do that as those opportunities develop. So we have an ambitious management team. Most of us have only been there 3 or 4 years. Vincent's been there forever, but he's kind of, we allow him to hang around. We've got an ambitious management team, relevant technology, and really a good platform, we think, to take this business forward over the next 2 or 3 years, and we're excited by the prospect of doing that. Thank you.
One question, your turnover dropped a lot in 2015.
Yes.
Why was that?
So at the end of, well, two things. You could say the turnover was very high in 2014 compared to where it had been. Alternatively, we hadn't put the previous years. But why don't you just explain what happened with 2014? There was a couple of things. I haven't described it here. We have a vehicle scanning system, which is a large, high-value order, which the company sold a few of over the years, and there was a couple of those in that year. So that was a plus. On the portable security side, the business at that point was having problems with its X-ray generator supplier, and in fact that X-ray generator supplier became a competitor. And one of the things that needed to be fixed was to get a new portable X-ray generator, and in fact we developed two with two different partners, one for the high-end systems, one for the low-end systems, and that's what's allowed us to rebuild that portable X-ray market, which fell off in 2015.
In terms of your acquisition strategy, do you expect to do that mostly by issuing paper? Will you come back to market, or what would you expect to do?
Well, I think there's opportunity there for both debt and equity for us. Obviously, the more our market cap, the more attractive it is to do equity fundraise. We've raised money twice now through issuing paper, both including most recently earlier this year. So we see that as a relatively well-trodden route, and we anticipate there'd be an appetite for that.
What proportion of your turnover is on the emission control?
It varies. It's over the last few years, it's varied between about £500,000 and £1 million of the total turnover that we've talked about.
One last question: what turnover would you need to get to make £1 million profit?
What across the business as a whole? That's an interesting question. We're at the moment we're saying £4.5 million, £2.5 million of profit. We could, if we doubled the size of the business, I don't think we'd have to add a lot of overhead cost to do that. So if it was,
you're about
yeah, that's about right. Yeah, so we're £8 to £9 million. I'd imagine we'd be making at least £1 million profit.
Does the British Army ATOs use this? And if not, who do you use as your reference client?
The British Army don't use our product. They've used another British manufacturer's product and occasionally an Israeli product. Our reference clients have been the British Transport Police and armies and EOD teams across the world. We could name, in this year we've probably installed in 32 territories. So if we could talk about Pakistan Army and Indian Army, Bangladeshi Army, Swedish Customs, there's any number of good reference clients.
What is the constraining factor in your expansion of your client base or your geographical markets?
Geography-wise, we've had particular success in the Middle East, Asia and Southeast Asia. And the fact that we're a British manufacturer has stood us in very good stead in that respect. Areas to particularly focus on that we haven't had a great deal of success in are South America and North America. And they are two particular markets that we're targeting at the moment.
Maybe worth commenting on the European market. For a long while, up until 2013-14, the European market was addressed in partnership with another company. They had generators, we had detector panels, they took them to market. So we didn't, our access in the European market was indirect. We lost that access to market when that company went off and did their own thing. One of the things we did just over, last year, nearly 2 years now, was recruit a new salesperson to focus on Europe. And he's picked up 7, 8, 9 different new customers, probably a wide range of new customers across Europe. So we're starting to do a lot better in that market now, just really by focusing on it. Yes, sir.
Are you manufacturing yourself?
Yes, so the X-ray generators in both cases have been designed by X-ray generator companies, but very specifically to our specifications and very much as a partnership with us, and are only sold through us. So you can't go and buy either of these things from those companies. So those are manufactured for us. The detector panel, which is really the core of our technology, is very much our own manufacture. So we get circuit cards printed and so on, but we assemble the detectors and the panel itself in our own in our factory in Loughborough. And then the rest of the system is laptops, it's cables, it's power supplies, all that kind of thing that comes in and then gets assembled into the package that goes out to the customer. So we have control of our own core technology. And one of the success stories actually over the last year or two has been gearing up that supply chain to deal with the growth that we've had. I mean, companies that were supplying us maybe 5 or 10 of whatever it was at the time, have been taking orders for 30, 40, 50 at a time, and that's been one of the things we've really concentrated on.
And are you built to order? Is that
we have been historically, but we now have a different policy, so we keep a minimum stock level so that we can turn around small quantities by return from time to time. We don't always manage to do that if we're too busy with big orders, but our policy is actually to keep a stock of the major products on hand.
So in that vein, if you get one of these nice orders for 20 units, how long before you can deliver that?
If we're starting from a blank sheet of paper, then it's 2 to 3 months.
Just perhaps naively, it sounds to me like you have more potential in the industrial side of the business in terms of efficiency of working capital, in terms of breadth of potential revenue streams, and in terms of just the fact that there's always lots of different things you could do.
Yes.
Is that a fair observation?
In a way, it's certainly a very attractive market. It's one I really liked the look of when I joined the business. I mean, my background was in the security space, and they said, don't worry about the industrial side, Vince looks after that. We want you to come and look at these portable X-ray systems. But really, I'm a strategy guy, and this looked like a pretty exciting business. The only thing I would say is that the pace of this market is quite slow. So you don't get an order for 15 systems. So we have a customer that has a large number of our systems. We have another customer that took 2 systems a couple of years ago and has been evaluating them, running trials and so on. They've just now started to deploy those, but they won't buy 20, 30 systems and deploy them worldwide. These things have to be fitted into production upgrades and so on. So it does move relatively slowly. But the opportunities there are quite considerable. I mean, we are with 2 of the top 3 companies in this wash coat business that Vince talked about, who are making, those 3 companies have a pretty significant percentage of that market between them. We're working quite hard to get in with the 3rd, and those new customers, as they start deploying those units, gives us quite considerable opportunity to grow that activity. And as Vince said, behind that, there's then a long tail of service and support, because these things are being used 8, 12, sometimes 24 hours a day.
If it's virtually self-financing, then it takes the constraints off. You can just go and sell it.
Yeah, from a working capital point of view, that's absolutely right. Yes, we're typically not needing to fund the build of those machines as we are sometimes in other spaces.
Do you get any repeat revenue in terms of software upgrades or maintenance?
Vince, you want to talk about both markets?
On the industrial sector, very much so. With 97% of repeat revenue on units that we've sold in the field, we'll have a support contract, and that will be both hardware and software, as well as calibration visits to site, and quite a few of those are on a 24/7 characteristic as well. On the security side, the portable systems, we've really struggled to get support revenue.
Yes, on the security side, on page 8, you mentioned 5 competitors. And are those, you say you're struggling to get any traction at all in America. Are any of these people selling into America, or are these European or Asian?
No, some of those are selling into America. To say we're struggling to get traction into America suggests that we've been, flying backwards and forwards trying to do that, which we haven't. It's one of the things I've decisions that we made early on in this is to park America until we had the stable product range and the right product range to tackle that market. America has a very particular affinity to a particular type of X-ray generator, which is different from ours, and you know, so we have to tackle that with probably a slightly different way from the way that we've been tackling other markets. We have, however, last year taken on a partner in America who, in fact, people that I worked with when I was working there running Smith's Detections business in the States, and they've done an initial market survey, and we're starting to look at target groups of customers in the States. So it's something that I would see us starting to work on in a much more focused way next year. But it very deliberately didn't sort of tackle that first.
So when you describe the market size as approximately 50 million per annum, security only, does that include America, or is America on top of it?
That figure does include America. The report that came from that was looking at the world. My own view is that there's some holes in what they've looked at in that. So that is. It's a difficult one because, you know, we have to be able to source any data that we put in these kind of presentations, and you know, it's not like the you know, the airport security market where I could find you 5 reports who could tell you how big it was. They'd all be wrong, but they'd be reports that you could source. So our own view is that it's a little bit bigger than that.
And then what about the industrial market? What size would you say that is?
Well, we've got an installed base of around 40 machines. Most of those are with one of the big 3 companies. So if you just reach that same level of penetration with the other 2 companies, that would be 3 times that market. But that's before you start thinking about increasing the percentage of units that they inspect. They typically only inspect a portion of units going down the production line. We've shown them how they could do that. We're selling units into the catalytic or the diesel particulate filter aftermarket. So we have a customer who's cleaning big diesel filters coming off trucks after 150,000 miles and then inspecting them at the end of that process to see that that's happened properly. And we're also starting to look at other parts in that catalytic converter supply chain. So there's plenty of places that we can go within our niche before we start thinking of, okay, we've got a machine that we can do this with. What other types of customers might like it? So for the next few years, we're very much focused on increasing our penetration of this catalytic converter.
You're in one of the big 3. Is somebody already installed in the other?
No, yeah, we're in two of the big 3. So we have a lot of units in one of the big 3. The second one has started deploying our units, and we're doing a lot of trials and experimentation and demonstrations with the third of those. It is an interesting market in that it's been very slow, for one reason or another, to adopt these kind of what we call non-destructive testing techniques. So it's not like they're already using somebody else's X-ray machine in this way and we have to displace them. Mostly what they're doing is, or were doing, was slicing the catalytic converter open and then using, you know, micrometers and measuring devices to look at the deposits. What we've allowed the industry, in effect, to do is to inspect, you know, in mid-process, you know, in the production line and adjust the process directly in response to that output. So our machines are very tightly integrated into their production line. In fact, if the X-ray stops working, that leg of their entire production line stops working until it is. And you know, these are big industrial concerns. Who has little old image scan as a key, fully integrated supplier, and it wants to see the chief executive once or twice a year to have sort of, you know, company to company talks about the future. And that's another reason why it's an attractive, you know, market for us. Is that you know, is the quality of those customers and the type of highly integrated relationship that we have to have with them because of where our machines are in their manufacturing process and how important they are to them. And the more pressure that they come under from their customers, people like Volkswagen and Mercedes and so on, you know, to improve their quality control, to make sure that, you know, the catalytic converter at the end of that process will meet its emission controls test, then the more testing they're likely to be using in that manufacturing process. So we do see it as an attractive space. At this point, somebody is going to put a hand up and saying, what about when it's all electric cars? Because there's always one. But and we'll worry about that in 10, 15 years' time. Right now, it's about tighter emission control regulations in Europe. There's new emission control standards coming in China. And those things are what are driving us over the next number of years. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, in view of the clients that you're dealing with and talking about there, is your current size an impediment to sales?
No, I don't think I'd say it. I don't think I'd say it was. No, I mean, you know, we've you know, really the only player in this space that's as focused as this on these particular types of machines, you know, carrying out these particular tests in this industry, and that, you know, that gives us a unique space. You know, one of our biggest customer, when they saw that they had a new chief executive who was coming into the business out of the security industry, you know, was actually very worried that we were going to close this activity down, and wanted me to come down to their headquarters and talk to them. And, you know, we're very pleased that we're able to say that, you know, this was an area that we planned to focus and develop the business, because, you know, that was important to them, and, you know, that's the way that relationship works. And it's a very different sale from the security side. I mean, this is key account management, and Vince, in fact, has built this area up, and he has the, you know, the working relationships with these guys, and he's working in the you know, in these big companies. And we have an outstanding service and support manager. In fact, we added an additional service and support person earlier this year. And you know, it's their performance, keeping these machines running and fixing them when they have problems, or supporting them on spares and software and all that sort of thing, that is what makes this work.
What keeps you awake at night?
What keeps me awake at night?
Cars,
no. What keeps me awake at night? This is a business that makes things and sells them, and we can have a fantastic 6 months because we just made a lot of things and sell them, and then I'm looking at where's the next ones, you know, and I think when we started off, you know, that was a real concern, because we got a big order. Oh my goodness, we got a big order, and, you know, we're all rushing around building things. Well, where's the next big order? Yeah. And I think only now, really, after having, you know, just over 3 years with the company, 3.5 years of the business, only now when I look at, we're delivering a £4.5 million year end. That's what's enough in the published numbers. But we're coming out of that year end, as I said in that announcement that we made, with over £2 million of order book. And that just lets me sleep a little bit better than, you know, when we reached the year end, having, you know, grabbed everything that we could possibly sell and, you know, got it up there and lined up for the auditors to count, pushed it out the way, and then sat looking at October thinking, well, what are we going to do now? Well, what we're going to do now in October, November and December is work on that £2 million order book. So, you know, just now we're starting to feel that, you know, what was a good reporting period that we had 18 months, 2 years ago, is momentum. And that momentum is the exciting thing for us, because it gives us a platform from which we can add to it.
Thank you. Thank you to all three of you.